Not too bad. Ready to do this again.
Yeah. Ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
Good, good. Let's see what happens. Um,
Yeah.
Paul, if you can do us a favor,
Okay.
get familiar with the at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to see where the mute and the start video buttons are. Do you see those at the bottom of your screen? Just make sure that you're on mute and that your video is turned off for the time right now, okay?
Okay.
We can see that your name is up there and that you're in the session, and you've been through this once already, so you know when Mr. Percy Dufour will cue you. So that's
Yep.
after I do the presentation for you. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to
Okay.
mute myself now too because I'm also waiting for other people to join us. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good seeing you.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Sarah Aubin. I am the recording secretary for the Committee of Adjustment. I'm asking that anybody that's joined and has video on, could you please turn your video off? Brian, can you talk for me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Yeah, I can. I'm unmuted now. I'm fine. I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Do you mind moving your camera a little bit? It's very hard to see you.
Yeah, I know. There's way too much light in this room. I don't know how to kind of control that. There's too many windows.
Okay, that's a little bit better, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Dan, how's your audio today? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, I'm going to mute my microphone.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Phil. Hi, Dan. Hi, Brian. All right, so I have with me Percy and Ray. We'd like to start the meeting.
I'll call the meeting to order. Let's welcome everybody this afternoon. I'll do introduction. We'll start with Rita Jaber, Secretary Treasurer, Managing Planning Services. Corrine Chasaw, the Assistant Planner. Sarah Aubin, Planning Assistant and Recording Secretary. Lori Chadwick's with us this afternoon as well, Director of Development Services. On the committee is Brian Gray, Bill Pocock, Ray Benito, Dan Boudreau, and my name is Percy Dufour. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest this afternoon? Not hearing any?
No, not for that.
No. Looking for a mover for the adoption of the public agenda. Moved by
Dan Boudreau, one second.
Moved by Mr. Benito, seconded by Dan Boudreau. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Corrine.
Yes. Did I miss-
Yeah, I just wanted to put something in here. We had been approached by Mr. Dan DiGiovanni, who owns a property address 9531 County Road 11.
We're not up to that yet.
Okay, sorry.
I need an adoption of the minutes of August the 18th. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Mr. Gray, seconded by Mr. Polcock. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? It's carried. Okay, we'll move to reports and applications. So you go ahead, Corrine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for that. I understand that we will bring that topic up under new business instead that I was referring to. The first application on the agenda today is for B1920. And I'll just give Sarah a quick moment there to get the PowerPoint presentation up.
Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that looks great. Thank you. So the first application is B1920. It's for Derek and Monica Hoffman, who are the owners of the property. And their agent today is Mr. Ernest J. Martin, and he's going to be speaking to this application after I'm done presenting for him. Mr. Ernest J. Martin is actually the brother of Monica Hoffman. So Monica and Derek own the property that is shown there in green. And the property is has a designation of agricultural. The
Corrine,
zoning for,
if I could cut in just for 1 second.
sure.
Okay, I failed to mention that. Anyone wishing to speak on the applications for or oppose will have an opportunity to do so. Corrine is going to go through the presentation as she's doing. If the committee has any questions to ask Corrine at that time, they'll do it. And then we'll move to the applicant and he'll have his chance to speak. Okay, thanks. Sorry, Corrine.
So the zoning of this property is agricultural A11. So in these two images here, you can see that the property is in green there, and the subject property that we're going to be talking about is actually in the purple area, and it's going to be for a lot addition. So Sarah, if you can move to the next slide, please. So the proposal is to add a portion of property that is identified as 13242 13th Concession Road. And this portion of the property to be severed is going to be added to 13252 13th Concession Road right next door. The total area of the subject property is 50 acres, and the severed parcel is 0.75.
Hey, have you done one of these Zoom meetings before?
Just to stop there for a moment,
But I don't know when I gotta talk. Do you know what I have to do?
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Yeah.
Would you mind just muting your mic for us?
Oh,
We're just starting the meeting.
oh, sorry about that.
And just to give you a little bit of a briefing here in case you missed it just joining us, what we are doing is we are starting through the agenda, and we are starting with the first application, which is B1920 for Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman. And then you will have a chance to probably speak at the end of the meeting. Okay, so if you can please mute your mic, which is found at the bottom corner of your screen.
Okay, we'll do that. Sorry about that. It's been a, okay.
No
it.
worries. Okay, did you find it there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So where we're at is the purpose of this application is for a lot severance, and it is actually to allow Mr. And Mrs. Martin to install a septic system. So the lot addition being added to this property is for the installation of a new septic system at 13252 13th Concession Road. Next slide, please. Just a couple of pictures here of the property. What you're seeing at the top is the area that is going to be added to 13252, which is just beyond those trees there. So you can see it as a grassed field area where the telephone pole is. That is going to be added to that property for the purposes of the septic system, and you will see that it is not under agricultural production at this time. At the bottom corner, the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that there's an access. That is the access actually for the farm lot itself. Okay, so you'll notice that there is, due to this severance application, there is no access on this severed parcel. It is located on the east side of the property that is at 13252, which is going to be the receiving property. The last picture there at the bottom is actually the access road that curves around this property and goes back to the farm lot. So access will not be affected here. Next slide, please. You'll see here that this is the property, the receiving property of the lot addition. There is, if you can pay attention to the top corner on the right-hand side, there is a accessory structure. The applicants and the agent have asked that this structure be added to this property as well. So not only are we adding a small lot addition for the septic system, we are also adding this accessory structure to the old homestead. Okay, next slide, please. So in considering a consent application, you have to ensure that it meets the policies, in this case, the provincial policy. We've reviewed this application. It is consistent with the severance policies of the PPS. Number two, does it comply with the official plan policies? Lot additions are permitted in the agricultural designations for technical purposes. According to the official plan policies, consents should only be granted for lot adjustments or minor boundary changes, provided both parcels comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman and Mr. Martin are applying for this lot addition for those technical reasons, which are to add enough area so that they can place a new septic system on the property for 13252. As a result of the severance, a minor variance is necessary to recognize the reduction in the retained farm lot parcel. The farm lot parcel will be reduced from 50 acres to 49.25. And I'm just speaking to the committee for a moment. If you were looking at the original submission, this has been slightly tweaked. There was, it originally said 0.94. So the addition is 0.75. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Next slide, please. So we have circulated this application to internal Town of Essex departments, and we received no objections. And we also circulated to external public agencies, and we received comments from the Essex Region Conservation Authority, and they stated that a portion of the property is regulated due to the roadside drain, and that any works within the vicinity of the regulated area would require a permit. It further states, though, that they have no objections to this severance or minor variance application. After giving public notice, we did not receive any other written correspondence objecting to this application. Should the committee choose to approve this application, it would be subject to the following conditions. Number one, submission of a registered reference plan. 2, signed transfers. 3, confirmation of all taxes paid. 4, drainage apportionments. And 5, that the severed parcel be consolidated with 13252 13th Concession Road. All these conditions would need to be fulfilled by this time next year. Next slide, please. Oh, and the next one, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of you, Sarah. So along with this, as a result of the proposed consent application, a minor variance application was necessary due to the minimum lot area provision for lots within the agricultural district 1.1. The provision states an agricultural lot minimum size is to be 40 hectares or 100 acres or as existing. The lot area of the severed parcel will be 0.75 acres and the retained lot will be reduced to 49.25 acres. Next slide, please. When reviewing applications for minor variance, the committee should satisfy the following 4 tests and ensure that they are met. Number 1, lot additions for technical purposes are permitted under the Town of Essex official plan. The main use of the retained parcel will continue to be agricultural. Number 2, the variance will not have any adverse impacts on the adjoining land uses. Lot areas and lot widths vary greatly in this area, and no agricultural land will be taken out of production as a result of the application. Number 3, the dwelling, accessory buildings, and accompanying infrastructure are all existing. There will be no new entrances or buildings that would impact traffic patterns or neighboring lots. And number 4, the variance is necessary to accommodate the resulting reduction in the retained farm lot size. Next slide, please. After internal circulations, again, for this application, we did not receive any objections. IRCA was not in an objection to the minor variance, and we did not receive any further comments from the public on this minor variance application. At this point, I will turn it back over to Mr. Chair for discussion and comments.
Thank you, Cory. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Mr. Martin, we'll go over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Just to add to what you were saying, we are just adding that land to install a weeping bed because right now we don't have a working weeping bed. So we want to go ahead and do that. And this land has been, like I've lived in this property for 40 of my 42 years on this earth. So it was my parents' home and I purchased it from them when my father passed away. So, and it's my sister that does live next door. So it's kind of a family thing. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions? I'll look for a motion to move. First, we're going to do the consent application, B1920. Looking for a motion.
I'll make it.
Moved by Mr. Benito to approve the application, seconded by Mr. Polka. Questions? All in favor? It's carried. Now for the minor application, A1920, looking for a motion. Moved by Mr. Boudreau, seconded by Mr. Gray. Questions? All in favor? And that's carried. You have a question, Mr. Bento or Boudreau? Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is application A2020, Brian and Janice Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property that is next on the agenda deals with 110 Bryan Avenue West, and that is in Essex Center. Up on the screen there, you're going to see the property highlighted. This property is designated residential. The zoning for this property is R11, which is for low density housing on urban lots. Next slide, Sarah. Okay, so you should be looking at the site plan. Excellent. So the applicants are proposing to construct a 926-foot garage addition with a second dwelling unit located above. The second dwelling unit would be constructed for Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's mother. Under the current zoning bylaw, living space above a detached accessory structure is not permitted. So again, under the current zoning bylaw, living space over a detached accessory structure is not permitted. The Garretts have therefore designed the replacement of their garage to be attached in order to accommodate this very needed living space for their mom. So the next slide, please. So here's some photos just to get you an idea. The existing house at the front, you can see the garage is tucked in behind. It is a detached structure. And you will see in the middle there, you can see that the existing detached structure is in disrepair, that it needs to be replaced. It is also located very close to the property line. It's located 2 feet from the rear property line, and it's also very close to the side property line, as you can see in the bottom picture. Again, you can see in the pictures here that it is detached. So according to the Town of Essex zoning bylaw, accessory structures have to be 4 feet from the property line. This existing detached garage will be demolished and replaced by an attached garage with additional living space over top of it, so a second story. The reason why this is a minor variance requirement is because an accessory structure only needs to be 4 feet. But if you attach it to a house, then it is part of the home and it needs to be 25 feet from the rear yard property line. 25 feet is established in order to provide an amenity area behind a structure. Okay. This structure, this accessory structure, has been there for a long time. This house was built in the 50s. This replacement would be basically on that same footprint, but it would be attached to the house. And that's why this 25-foot setback provision would be applicable. So what they're proposing now, though, is that they'd like to replace it, put a second story on top of it for their mom, attach it to the house. But what they would like to do is stay 4 feet from the rear yard, the rear yard property line. Had a blank moment there for a second. Sorry, guys. So these pictures here show this situation, I think, very clearly. Next slides, please. Now this slide here will show you actually what the elevations are going to look like, and you'll notice that it's basically keeping same bay door in that same location, and then the second story over top, and then you will notice a couple of things here, that there is no windows that are going to be on the back side of this structure. There is going to be one potential window in the garage on the side elevation, but they did this on purpose. Okay, they wanted to make sure that there was privacy for the neighbors and that there would be no concerns, hopefully, with any fire issues or anything like that. Next slide, please. So as per section 9.8 of the Town of Essex official plan, the committee should be satisfied that a minor variance can meet the 4 policy tests. So number 1, the general intent of the OP and the ZBL are maintained. So a residential dwelling with an attached garage is a permitted use in the R1.1 zoning district. Number 2, the garage addition will replace an existing detached garage that is currently located less than 4 feet from the rear lot line. The new addition will improve the current situation by increasing the existing setback from 2 feet to 4 feet. The new addition will be located at the rear of the dwelling and not be in closer proximity to any public road or cause any changes to the existing driveway. Number 4, the owners have identified that the existing garage is in disrepair and needs to be replaced. Currently, the OP does not permit that living space over top of a detached garage. Therefore, in addition to the house would be the only way to provide additional living space and storage for the family. Due to the interior lot layout of the dwelling, the location of the basement windows, and backyard, the owners have stated that this was the most cost-effective way to situate the new addition and the attached garage. Next slide, please. Comments and actions. We have circulated this application to internal and external agencies, And the comments are as follows. We received comments from the Essex Region Conservation Authority, and they stated that they had no objections to this application. We did receive one comment of support from the public, and that was Mr. and Mrs. Wayne Fairburn, who live at 122 Bryan Avenue West. They phoned in to state that they had no objections and were in support of this proposal. And then just recently, we did receive some comments from Mr. Kevin Carter from the building department, and I will read those out to you. So please note that the building department has concerns regarding the minor variance if there are any proposed openings, such as windows or doors, etc., on the exterior walls facing the side and rear yards. Ontario Building Code requires a minimum of 1.2 meters. So that's 3 feet 11 inches for spatial fire separation from property lines to the face of a structure. If the committee approves this minor variance with openings, the property owner or future property owner must fire rate the exterior exposed walls with a 1-hour fire rating. Only the walls facing the side and the rear yards will require a fire rating. Please note that the building department discourages any minor variances of structures, houses, garages, etc., abutting property lines less than 4 feet. That is less than 4 feet from the side and rear yards in residential zones. The reason being, if approved today by the Committee of Adjustment, tomorrow or 5 years down the road, the owner, future owner may wish to install a window, door without a permit, which leads to the town of Essex being exposed to liable legal actions. In other words, if the committee proceeds with approvals, please place clear, precise conditions before approving. Examples: no future openings in the rear or side yard. Supply the building department with an Ontario Land Surveyor survey indicating exactly what all the existing yard setbacks are presently at before applying for a building permit. Okay, that concludes my presentation for this application. Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to you for discussions and questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the committee for Corinne? So maybe we'll let Mr. Garrett, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we'll let you speak on the application, and then the committee, if they have questions, they'll ask them.
Perfect. Like Corinne said, she pretty much got everything inside of the slides that I want. I'm trying to make this affordable living for my mother. As we all know, in Essex, there's no such thing as affordable living. So I'm trying to give her a place to be able to live and be able to afford her daily needs. If the board approves it, like you said, for the windows and stuff, if I have to stay away from the side and the rear view, I will meet all the town's expectations that needs to be done for itself. That's about it. If you guys have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bennett, I'll start here.
So how far are they going to be right now of the design they have exact, Corinne?
Hi, Mr. Beneteau.
Hi.
So if it were to stay as a detached structure, they would have to be 4 feet from the rear and the side yard.
Okay.
Because it is attached, because it is proposed to be attached, they would need to be 25 feet. The catch-22 on this is that because he wants to put living space above, it has to be attached, because currently our zoning bylaw states that you cannot have living space over top of a detached structure. Good news about that is that we are looking at potentially amending that in the future so that we would allow living space over top of a detached structure, but that is not current right now. That is not
But-
occurred yet.
My question is everything that they have there right now, I heard Kevin say it's going to be 3 feet 11 inches, but you need the 4 feet. Can they not shorten it up so that'll be? I don't want to get the town involved in any kind of, if something happens down the road, like he says.
Yep.
People-
Through you, Mr. Chair, let me clarify. Kevin, in his notes here, has stated that anything less than 3'11" would need to be fire code rated. So it needs to have the additional drywall that would be put on in the interior of the walls to slow the advancement of any fire. So this project or this proposal is 4 feet. So it satisfies this. It satisfies that requirement and that concern. This proposal is that it would be 4 feet from the rear and 4 feet from the side. So it's actually improving this situation from right now what this existing structure is at 2 feet. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but
Perfect.
then down the road, then they can cut windows in without us knowing about it then. If they go to 4 feet.
Yeah, what Kevin was referring to was that you can cut a window in without a building permit.
If we go to 4 feet.
If he's less than 4 feet, then it would be an issue. He's
Okay.
at 4 feet.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we want to have that, make sure that that's in the minutes. So if something takes place down the road, we'll have that covered. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Boudreau? And then Mr. Gray.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a little difficulty with the minor variances being more than a minor. It's again, it's, we're going from 25 feet to 4 feet. Is there any way that the proponent can bring it down to a reasonable distance from the property line that would make it a little more palatable for the committee to accept?
I would say that's for you, Mr. Garrett, to respond.
Well, yes, right now, with my backyard, I'm about 27 feet away from my back fence. So for me to try to fulfill that 4 feet and make it smaller up top, I'm losing more of my garage and more of the building structure up top. So I'd be losing a lot. Like I'm trying to go from where my setback is now 2 feet off the back of my garage, trying to fulfill the town and give them 4 feet around it on the side and on the back, and then try to make that structure. If I had to follow the rules of the 25 feet, I would only have a foot on my back side right now that I'd be able to build, which wouldn't be, it would be smaller than a closet.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
My other concern is I know currently right now the existing garage is in non-conformance, but it's only 1 story tall. Now that this new structure is going to be 2 stories tall, roughly about 16 feet above ground, maybe even a little bit taller, and it's going to be 4 feet from 2 property lines that would give 2 adjoining neighbors an unpleasant view.
So I spoke with all my neighbors, all the way around, across the street, behind me, everything. Everybody seems to be very happy that it's going to happen, or if it can happen. They had no objection. I had one neighbor just ask me about windows for the privacy, and I told them I will fulfill their privacy and not be able to put no windows on that side, so I don't anything on their privacy. But nobody has had any issues. I went pretty far and around of my property to speak with the neighbor.
Does that satisfy you, Mr. Boudreau?
The answer is not satisfactory to what I'm looking for, but I'll see if any other committee members have questions.
Okay, Mr. Gray?
This looks to me like it's sure like a granny suite. And so because of that, and because it's going to be an independent from the main house as it sits, and it doesn't appear that there's going to be any ingress or egress from the main house, but from a separate stairway. So we're going to approve a separate living dwelling that would probably fall under these new guidelines that Corinne was talking about a few minutes ago. And we're going to approve it with only 1 entrance and exit from a 2nd story structure. Is that kind of a strange way of doing it? This question might be more for Corinne than it is for the applicant.
That might be an answer for the building inspector.
Well, for sure.
Through you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, the it will not be just simply attached via like a breezeway. There is going to be like a mudroom. It is going to be an extension of the actual dwelling itself. yes, if we do end up passing or amending our zoning bylaws to allow second story or granny flats or whatever you want to call them, second dwelling units separately under or over top of accessory structures, these types of accessory structures would be permitted 4 feet from the property line. So I'm not sure if can answer your question. Maybe Mr. Garrett can also talk about, he was telling me about the mudroom that's going to be in between the new garage and the residential unit. But perhaps Brian can also talk to that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so in between the garage and the house, there will be a mudroom with like a laundry room in there. We will have a set of stairs that goes up to the granny suite, which Brian Gray, you mentioned it, it's called the granny suite. She will be getting access to that through an acorn stair lift. So we could kind of keep an eye on her. And it will be one entrance that's shared for the house to get in and out.
So if this new legislation or bylaw is going to allow things like granny suites, is this application then a little bit untimely then perhaps, Corinne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a situation where the amendments haven't occurred and you have a applicant that is looking to solve some living space issues currently. So from my understanding, they were looking for, they've been working on this for a while. I remember Mr. Garrett brought this to me some time ago. And to this point, this is the best version that we brought forward to you today, so that we can, or he can accommodate his mom, because that's where the need is right now. We cannot affirm that this amendment is going to take place in a certain timeline. So to ask the applicant to continuously wait in a situation that he needs to do something soon is the question that we have before us right now.
Thanks, Brian. I'll just comment on that. Brian, I totally agree with you there. This is just the first of many that are going to follow if they don't make a decision that has to be made. So we are going to have a problem if you don't pass what has to be passed in order for us to make these type decisions. Phil, you had your hands up?
Yeah, through the chair. Brian, is there, for the distance for the backyard, would there be a way to move the granny suite and the garage up, further up on your house, and making it look more like a one house with the detached garage basically right beside your house? Or are you trying to keep your driveway large enough to have 4 cars or 5 cars that you can put in there right now?
So right now, I'm trying to keep the layout of the house the same way it is now, with the garage sitting on the property. The only thing I'm adding to that garage is to demolish it, build a new garage onto it, and put a second story on it and attach it to my house through a mudroom. To build it on top, like I went through many designs, trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. Putting it on the backyard, the side, the driveway side. It just made our house look not like it belonged in the neighborhood. So the way that we did it this way, it appeases the lot line, because right now my garage is only sitting 2 feet off of my property line on both sides. So I'm trying to give that back to make it right, and then try to make it aesthetically nice for everybody to look at. I don't need a big monster on my house, right?
Okay.
I'm just trying to follow suit with the the whole neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I'll go outside. Is there anyone here to speak on that application for or opposed to it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Rita. I just have some final comments.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
I just want to add that, as Corrine mentioned earlier, the accessory structure, the garage, was 2 feet from that rear lot line. So there are circumstances to necessitate, you know, a 4-foot, 21-foot reduction in the setback between what we now consider a dwelling. There's an attached garage. If this was a proposal at the building department, they would see that the garage is attached and that they could be as close as 4 feet to the side lot line, not the rear lot line. But as Mr. Garrett explained earlier, there are reasons why he needs that setback reduction. In terms of the variance and assessing the variance, you go back to your 4 tests. What's the impact on the neighborhood? You can have a dwelling with a 2nd story in the R11 residential district. He's still going to maintain a significant backyard, and he's not putting any windows or any doors on the portion that's going to face his neighbors. So again, in terms of height, we would have allowed a 2-story building in the R11 district. In terms of setback, that 4 foot from the side lot line would be permitted. But again, there are reasons to necessitate this variance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the committee? Anyone else to speak on the application? I'll be looking for a motion. Mr. Pocock,
I'll motion to approve the application.
with the conditions.
Yeah, well, I believe it's meeting Mr. Carter's conditions already with the 4-foot offset off the property lines of the front, the side and rear.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Mr. Gray,
So can I understand the condition then? Are we gonna go with, and it appeared to be Mr. Carter's recommendation that the fire rating and everything would be what would normally be in a 3-foot 11 condition? It should be applied to this 4-foot setback. Is that my understanding of what the condition might be?
I believe that's the way it is. Mr. Pocock, in your motion?
I was going to go with however Mr. Carter wrote the recommendation. I think if it was less than the 3 feet 11 inches, then he has to put the extra fire rating in. But being at 4 feet, he doesn't need to.
Yeah, that's correct. And that will be in the minutes for protection of the town. Okay. Any other questions? I'm gonna call out a motion here, or a vote. All in favor? Mr. Gray seconded, right? Correct, right? Yes. Moved by Phil, seconded by Brian. All in favor?
Oh, hold on. Okay. Elaine, can you please turn your video off right now? We are having our members take a vote. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Bill, are you supporting the motion, Mr. Gray?
I'm supporting it, yeah.
Percy, I seconded it to bring it to a vote.
No, I understand that. That's why I'm asking you if you're supporting. Are you voting in favor?
Brian, are you voting in favor of the motion on the floor? Or no?
Once again, no.
No? Okay.
Okay,
So Phil, we have 1.
okay, opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. The application's denied.
The motion's denied. That motion's denied, so then we would need a motion to deny the application.
Yeah.
If that's the way we're going.
We can go for a second motion if, oh, sure, down, sure, down. Okay, so the application is denied, Mr. Garrett.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is Richard and Paul Brockman, 290 Talbot Street South. I'll turn it over to Kareem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application, the owners of the property is Richard and Pauline Brockman. The property address is 290 Talbot Street South. That is in the Essex Center area. This is actually located very near to the edge of the settlement area of Essex Center, and it is actually at the extent of the boundary with the town of Kingsville. The property is designated residential, and the zoning for this property is residential district R11 for low density housing on urban lots. Next slide, please. The property is a large lot. It measures 100 feet by 395 feet in depth. The applicants are proposing to construct a 1,088 square foot detached garage. The detached structure meets all of the zoning provisions for the R1.1 category, except for the 750 square foot maximum area provision allowed for accessory structures. The maximum gross floor area for an accessory structure in the R1.1 district is 750 square feet. Therefore, the amount of relief being requested today is 338 square feet. Town of Essex bylaw does permit, however, a combined area for detached structures to be up to 1,000 square feet. The proposal would only be 88 square feet over this provision size. Mr. and Mrs. Brockman are requesting this relief to construct one accessory structure only for the storage of the family vehicles, outdoor yard equipment, and recreational vehicles. Next slide, please. Just some property shots here that you can see. Top corner there is from the road. So you can see that the house is set back pretty far on the lot, and it gives you a bit of a scale of how large this lot actually is. The next photo there, you can see out the rear of the property. Again, a very, very large rear yard lot, and that there is a open field behind. That is actually under the town of Kingsville jurisdiction. Next slide, please. Okay. The owners have chosen materials for this detached structure to match the architecture of the existing dwelling. The structure would be 32 feet by 34 feet in size, and this would satisfy their needs for the added storage and for parking space. Next slide, please. As per section 9.8 of the Town of Essex official plan, the committee should be satisfied that a minor variance can meet the policy, the 4 tests for a minor variance. Number 1, the Town of Essex official plan permits uses accessory to the main use in areas designated residential. The zoning bylaw permits the construction of accessory structures. The accessory structure will satisfy all building regulations prescribed in the R1.1 zoning, such as the structure will not exceed 1 story in height. It falls within the lot coverage provision. It will not contain living space, and it will not be used to accommodate a home occupation. Number 2, the subject property is a large residential property that backs onto a vacant agricultural lot. Although the bylaw only permits accessory structures no greater than 750 square feet, the bylaw does permit a combination of accessory structures up to 1,000 square feet for a combined area. This proposal would therefore only be over this provision by 88 square feet. The owners are proposing to use materials that complement the facade of the existing building. The structure will be set far back from the road and far from any views from the adjacent dwellings and from the street. The proposal will not result in disruptions to traffic or parking patterns. Number 4, the subject property is considerably larger than the average lot in a residential R1.1 district, but is subject to the same building requirements or regulations. The applicant wishes to have more storage space for the family's personal vehicles, equipment needed for lawn maintenance, and also for special equipment needed for their daughter who has special needs. Next slide, please. Upon circulation of the application, we did not receive any comments from internal departments objecting to this. The Essex Region Conservation Authority also provided comments to us, and they stated that they had no objections to the application. And then we did not receive any comments or objections from the public. We did have one neighbor contact us asking to join the Zoom meeting today. So, Mr. Chair, there may be somebody in the audience today that wishes to speak to that. This concludes my presentation on this application, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Prior to moving forward with this application, I would like to clarify that we do need a motion to deny the previous application A2020 if that's the way the committee would like to go. So if we could do that motion prior to further discussion of A2120, that would be appreciated.
Is Mr. Garrett still there?
He has left. He has left the meeting.
Okay, I'll still look for a motion for denying Mr. The A2020, Mr. Garrett application. Moved by Mr. Beneteau, seconded by Mr. Boudreau. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Opposed? Mr. Pocock? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, continue on.
It doesn't change. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Brockman, it's your turn to speak. Are you out there? Richard or Pauline?
There we go. Now I'm here. Yeah, so as was told there, we're just looking to construct a secondary garage on our property. It is greater than the 750 square feet, but as noted as well, we could have two structures up to 1,000 square feet. So that's why we just wanted to combine it into one so that we didn't take up more of our backyard than necessary. So just to give a little bit of I guess information history on our family. We have an 18-year-old son. We do have a daughter that is 16 that has special needs, and we have a 13-year-old son. So with the boys, we do have several recreational vehicles, a boat, an ATV, and side-by-sides and trailer to house things. And then of course with our daughter, we have a full-size Chevy Express van with a side lift on to enable us to move her around. So all these things take up a lot of room. So that's why we're looking to just do this building secondary structure at the back of our property to move some of the items back there, store them inside, things like that, so that we can maneuver around our driveway a little bit easier to allow us to get our van into the garage where we're set up to have the side lift drop onto a platform to get Abby into the house. My 18-year-old also has his own vehicle now. And then Pauline and I both have vehicles as well for work. The van is solely used for Abby. So we have 4 vehicles on top of all of the other stuff. So it's a little crazy, I know. But I think that our property can accommodate it. It was stated that it was a fairly large property with the field in behind. The neighbors are going to be a significant distance away from the structure. We're proposing to keep it 5 feet off the property lines, which is a little bit more than I know that's needed, but that's what we want to do. And we do want it to look good in even with our house and stuff. So we'll be constructed similarly. I guess that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'm open for questions.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess if I could add one more thing.
Go ahead.
I know a big concern in town is drainage, and that's a concern in our backyard too. We don't have a rear yard drain in our backyard because the property is so large. There's no way to get the water from the back of the property to the roadway or anything like that. So I already have put in an application for a grade permit, and I've spoke to the building department about that, and they've explained exactly what we need for grading without the rear yard drain and things like that. So we will retain all of our water on our property. That won't be a concern. That's it.
Thanks. Mr. Popak, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it was just a question about how are you going to get back to the garage? Are you going to put a hard surface, or is it going to be like a pea stone or a gravel all the way back to the structure?
We will be extending our driveway all the way back to the structure. For the time being, our driveway's concrete right now. For the time being, the driveway going back to the structure will be gravel.
And then you're planning on concreting it or paving it or something like that?
Possibly. I can't say for sure right now. The cost would obviously dictate that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Someone else have their hands up? Nope. Is there anyone out there that wishes to speak on the application? No one? No more questions from the committee?
Elaine Robbins. There she is. Yep. Elaine, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Yes, hi. I just had a quick question. Who's bordering the back? I was just concerned about my lot, but looking at the, the photos and everything, the aerial photos, I don't think that's us. Is that being worked right now as farmland behind the structure?
Yes, that's correct. It's just a field right now that gets, it basically grows, and a farmer goes in and cuts it and bales it.
Oh, okay. All right. And then the other thing is, so I'm just out of curiosity, not as a criticism, but you said it's a good distance and it wouldn't bother neighbors, but you're talking about like 5 feet off. Is it the 4 feet? Is that what the lot, you can't build, is it a 4 feet thing, but you're doing 1 extra foot? Is that what's happening back there from the lot line? You said 5 feet from the lot line?
That's correct. For this structure, the minimum setback is 4 feet. But
Okay.
we're going 5 feet. But my comment about being distance from the neighbors was distance to the houses, not necessarily the property line.
That's what I was wondering, because back there, I don't see anything else, any structures. So, so when you said a great distance, you meant from the homes?
That's correct.
Oh, okay, because it just, that's what I couldn't get my head around, because I didn't see anything, and it didn't look like a great distance, so, all right. Okay, just wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm looking for a motion on the application.
I'll make the motion.
Grant?
That's good. I'll make the motion.
Moved by Mr. Beneteau to grant the application. Is there a seconder, Mr. Polkoff? Questions? Is there conditions attached to this? No? Okay. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brockman.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to a deferred application of A1712 for Paul and Eva Antonell, 581 County Road 50, and I'll turn it over to Corinne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application was deferred by the committee from the August meeting, and the committee asked for clarification on the site plan to be included in the submission, as well as a revised elevation drawing showing the proposed garage door openings into the new addition. So I'm just going to give you a quick recap real quick on this property. Sarah, if you could go to the next slide. So this is the site plan. So what you're looking at here is the blue is highlighted, that is the existing house, and the green area is the proposed garage addition that they want to put onto this house. As you'll see in this site plan, you'll notice that the extents of the property are highlighted in yellow, and there is this zigzag kind of fashion to the exterior lot line on the west side. The way that this property is situated It is very, very constricted due to setbacks from County Road 50, so that's a County of Essex setback distance. They have to be 85 feet from the center line of the road back. So if you see that diagonal red line, that's their setback. Then you'll see on the western side, you'll see the town of Essex's external setback distance, which is 15 feet, and you'll see it described on this site plan as well. But further, you'll see that showing as a delineation for that zigzagged external lot line. So you'll see it cuts right into the property. That is the reason why he needs to come to the committee for a minor variance application, and you'll see that overlapping that green area. So that's the area that we're talking about for the minor variance. He will be 4 feet from that exterior lot line. So what he's reducing it from is 15 feet for an external lot line, down to 4 feet, only in that corner area. He satisfies the 15-foot setback distance from the west side to the part of the garage, the northern part of the garage, but it's only this corner where it cuts into the property, which is the issue. The roadway that is next to this property is a private road. It's owned by the Poplar Bluff Drive Homeowners Association. Mr. Antonell wishes to do this construction, this garage addition, so that he can park his cars, that he can have a small workshop area, and that he can have it for storage. There is no attached garage onto the existing structure. He only has a small detached shed on the opposite side of the house for storage. And due to the fact of this configuration, this is the best situation that he could put forward for the amount of storage that he needs on this property. Okay, next slide, please. Just some photos, just to refresh your memory of this property. You can see that there's no attached garage. It would be off to the side where the car is parked currently, and that you can see that the Poplar Bluff Drive in this location, it is narrow. It is narrow at the front entrance here at the intersection. It starts, it's 40 feet wide, and then it opens up further down the road to 66 feet wide. So hence that small anomaly at the beginning of the entrance, which unfortunately, Mr. Antonell has owned that properties for a few years, but it was always part of this property previously. Next slide, please. So after our last meeting in August, Mr. Antonell came back to us and he stated, well, let me give you some new revisions, some side view elevations. And what he came up with was actually 2 options to put before you today. He went for his preferred option, and that's what's showing up on the screen right now. We're calling it preferred option A. So from the front, you can see the structure that's going to be added. You can see that from the side, there's 1 bay door for the garage. The reason for that is that for safety purposes, you don't want to be pulling in and out of a garage with your vehicle and backing anywhere near a roadway. So for safety purposes, we make sure and ensure that no openings would be within 20 feet of a road right of way. So that's what you're seeing on that side view. The last one on the rear, he has included a rear view or a rear bay door. Now, if the committee isn't favorable to this option, he did include an option B. So next slide, please, Sarah. Option B is different in that there is only a garage door opening on the north side and on the south side. There is no openings on the west side. He does prefer option A simply because he finds that the roadway at County Road 50 is busier, and he would have the situation of how the garage is laid out in the interior of it. The side entrance would work out much better for him, and I'll let him speak to that later. Next slide, please. So as per section 9.8 of the Town of Essex official plan, the committee should be satisfied that the minor variance can meet these 4 tests. First one, single detached dwelling with an attached garage is a permitted use under the residential designation for the R11 zoning district. The garage addition will support the main use, the main residential use. Number 2, this was designed for the west side of the dwelling because of the following constricting setbacks that I mentioned earlier. Again, 85 feet from County Road 50, 25-foot front yard for the town of Essex, a rear yard of 25 feet. There is also a 15-foot setback from the external property line, which is the subject of this minor variance. The proposal does satisfy all other provisions, including lot coverage for the zoning, the R11 zoning district. Number 3, neighboring residential lots contain similar attached and detached structures that are of relative size. The variance would allow the owner access off of Poplar Bluff Drive, which is a private road, which has less traffic, and the owner has obtained permission from the Poplar Bluff Drive Homeowners Association to obtain this access. This access would not affect traffic patterns on Poplar Bluff Drive. Due to the setbacks associated with Poplar Bluff Road right-of-way allowance, the County of Essex Highway 50 road setbacks and the Town of Essex exterior side yard setbacks, development on that side of the property is so restricted, and that's why he approached the town or the Committee of Adjustment for this relief. Although the relief requested would allow the southern corner of the addition to be 4 feet from the road allowance, the majority of the addition meets that 15-foot exterior side yard width. So as a condition of approval, no openings to accommodate vehicular ingress and egress would be permitted within that 20-foot exterior side yard lot line. And he has shown that on his preference A option. Next slide, please. We have circulated this application to internal and external agencies. We did receive comments from Kevin Gerard, the Director of Infrastructure Services. He stated that he is amicable to accepting the 25 by 50-foot garage addition with a minor variance for reduction in exterior side yard to 4 feet. The proposal would meet the criteria specified to allow for a 20-meter right-of-way for Poplar Bluff Drive. We would also require proof of permitted access, he states. And he has achieved that from the Homeowners Association. The driveway access beyond 25 feet wide should not be permitted within the road right-of-way. In response to this comment, we have included a proposed condition that the driveway access be no wider than 25 feet. This comment was written originally, and Mr. Antonell has now reduced the size of his access driveway. So this should not be an issue. It will be less than 25 feet. We also received comments from Mr. Kevin Carter, the building official, and he stated that he had no objections to it. The Essex Region Conservation Authority also forwarded comments stating that they had no objections to this proposal as well. The County of Essex stated in their comments that there was the 85-foot setback distance from the center line of the road. This proposal does satisfy that setback distance. And they also stated that any new access to County Road 50 would require a permit. They had no objections to the actual application. Next slide, please. Should the committee decide to approve this application, we recommend the following conditions based on the comments received from Infrastructure Services. The first comment would, or the first condition would be that a minimum separation between the vehicular entrance to the garage and the exterior side lot line shall be 6 meters or 20 feet. Mr. Antonell has satisfied that in his sketch. The driveway access be no wider than 25 feet. Again, Mr. Antonell has shown this on his sketch and he satisfies this requirement. This concludes my presentations for this application. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Corinne. Questions from the committee? Nothing? Go ahead, Mr. Gray.
So there's several options that are up here. And I believe that Mr. Antonell had indicated that the west side with the garage door on the west side was his preferred one. Like, of all these drawings that are up there, they're all options up until final construction. Is that kind of what I'm understanding? If we approve the application, then the applicant will be able to pick whatever of all those views that he's presented to us here. They'll all fall within the building permits and whatever.
Through you,
Because,
Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Corinne, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gray. It is a great question that yes, this layout, when we got comments back from Kevin Carter, he was satisfied. He can work with this proposal, whether it has the doors on the west side or whether it has doors on the north and the south side.
Okay.
Mr. Kevin Gerard also was satisfied, provided that the conditions are satisfied, in which this latest proposal would satisfy these conditions.
Okay, so when I look at the registered plot line, it appears that the driveway access to the south actually extends onto the neighboring property to the south, which is the golf course, I believe. So that in order to get into that south large garage door, the actual gravel driveway is on the neighbor's property.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is a good eye, Mr. Gray. Yes, we've noticed that. I have spoken to Mr. Antonell regarding that. It is already existing. This would be something that I would believe would be need to be remedied between the neighboring property owner and himself. But I can't really speak to something that's already existing in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Woodrow, did you have concerns earlier? Go ahead, and then Phil will be your turn.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a question to the Corinne or to Rita. Brian brought up the question about the number of driveways, but in the official plan, not the official plan, in the development manuals, isn't only one driveway permitted per residence?
For you, Mr. Chair, it's Rita. That's correct.
So,
Now, private road, so I'm unsure if the same rule would apply. I know they need a permit for that access anyways, but given that it's a private road, it may not be the same case.
Right. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, so Mr. Antonell could have the main driveway off of Poplar Beach Road, and then he could have that driveway through the back of his garage through a grass medium where he'd probably store something once in a while. Would that be correct, Mr. Antonell?
The driveway that's existing, is that what you're questioning?
Well,
I wouldn't use it for storage. The main driveway would be directly from the west side door onto Poplar Bluff Drive.
Correct. And that would be your one and only driveway. And then when you wanted to access the rear of your garage, that would just be something you would do occasionally and not an everyday occurrence.
That's correct.
Okay. That answers my question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Pocock?
I just have one question. One of the drawings, it has like 6 feet to the property line to the back of the garage. I'm just wondering if he reduced his garage by 6 feet, would we even need to be looking at this application?
That would be directed to either Rita or Corinne.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. If you, Sarah, would you mind just sliding back to the site plan?
Yep.
This has been a discussion back and forth with the applicant over some time now. Yep, that one. You'll notice here that we did have a discussion between Mr. Antonell and myself just recently, actually, that he is here before the committee today to construct this size of a garage. He always has the option of reducing it considerably to fit within those red lines that you're seeing on the screen, which are all the setbacks applied. That would basically cut the garage footprint in half almost. So he could construct a garage there, he would have to stay within those and he would not need a minor variance. He's approached the committee today to construct this larger structure in order to have the amenities that he feels is required or is necessary.
Okay, thank you. So, answer your question, Phil, or you have another?
Well, it was more of the rear part. Like it only looks at one section is the 4 feet, within that 4 feet, and looks, well, it's 4 by 6 feet right at the back of the garage. And that was the only thing, because I didn't know size wise. I think it's a large garage regardless, but it was 6 feet. It's only like 6 feet of garage that I was questioning, that if he didn't if he say did a 25 by 44 garage and he'd be right on that corner, would that have had to come to us? But I guess it does kind of answer my question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Antonelli, you have anything to add?
Only the reason perhaps for me wanting or needing this garage, I'm over 60. I don't want to say how old my wife is, but she's never had the luxury of, having an internal direct access from the garage to the house. And I like to provide that for her, and that's primarily why I want the garage. So we're both getting older, and as it gets more important as you get older to go directly from the garage into the house. The rest of it is a workshop for me. And, I've always used a garage as a workshop in my other houses. And I need some room for storage for lawn equipment. And I do tinker in the garage as well. And I'm trying to be flexible. I'm trying to stay within all the bylaws and regulations that are required to build this thing. So I'm trying to stay flexible. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone out there that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, any more questions for the committee? Mr. Gray.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, because of the kind of unusual height of this structure too, would you know, or would one of the staff know the restrictions or any restrictions on having lofts and that type of thing in there? Would that be something that Kevin would usually mention, that the lofts weren't available? Or a whole second floor definitely isn't, I guess, but are lofts available?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer that. It's Rita. So because this garage is attached, it's actually part of the dwelling, so they can have living space on top of that garage because it's attached.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I just make a comment?
go ahead.
Okay. The reason it's a little bit taller is because I want to put a car lift in there. I'm not planning on any dwelling up there. It's just strictly because I want to put a car lift so I can lift the car up, and I just need that extra height. And keep in mind, these are not hard drawings. They're not done by an architect. They're just sketches that I've done on Excel, and they're kind of approximate. So it's going to be like, plus or minus a little bit.
Okay, thanks. Another question, Brian? Go ahead. You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? I'll call for a motion. Approve or turn it down? Mr. Boudreau.
I'll make a motion to grant the minor variance, and I'm in favor of preference A, or preferred A.
So the motion will incorporate Plan A. Is there a seconder? Mr. Benetton. Questions? All in favor? It's carried. So it's Plan A, Mr. Antonell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dan. Ray, first. Okay, we're gonna move to unfinished business. I believe we're gonna be speaking with Mr. D. Giovanni.
For you, Mr. Chair, if I can, it's Rita. Corinne has asked me to speak on this request by Mr. Dan Di Giovanni because the application for consent dates back to 2019. So with this request, it's for a change of conditions. Members of the committee will recall an application for the property located at 9531 County Road 11. Sarah, if you want to skip to the next slide, you can show the committee where it is approximately. It's in McGregor, and it's the lot right next to the former McGregor Home Hardware. Back in 2019, the applicants, Mr. Dan Giovanni, approached the committee and was approved for a lot addition. They severed a piece of land from 9531 to be added to the property known as the McGregor Home Hardware, because the McGregor Home Hardware is going to be turned into entirely residential living space. So they needed that extra 4 feet to satisfy requirements under the building code. They did not have that distance between the two property lines before that consent was granted. One of the conditions that the committee imposed at that time was that the garage that's existing at 9531 be demolished. And that was because the garage was entirely on the property lot line. So the committee wanted to ensure that it didn't straddle both lot lines once the severance was approved. So that is one of the conditions. The applicant has until October 15th, 2020 to satisfy all those conditions. He has not satisfied all the conditions yet. The Planning Act states that he does have the option to come back to the committee for a change of conditions. So Mr. Dan Giovanni is here tonight requesting a change of condition F. So Sarah, if you can go a couple more slides. He would like to change that condition, either remove it or change the language, because he's been working with the building department to come up with a solution for that garage. So Sarah, if you can go up to about slide 34. These are the revised site plans that Mr. Di Giovanni has been working with our chief building official on. And you can see at the bottom left corner, there's Kevin Carter's signature as indicating that they've been approved. The solution, and Mr. Di Giovanni can speak to this in a bit, is not to demolish the structure, but to demolish the south wall of the structure and move it 4 feet from that proposed property line so that he can satisfy the bylaw regulations. So instead of completely demolishing it, because it's a completely valuable and a garage that's in good condition, they want to keep it, but they want to move it instead of completely demolish it. So Mr. Dan Giovanni is here tonight asking for either the removal of that condition or changing the language. Instead of saying that the garage be demolished, perhaps say that the garage be moved.
Okay, thanks, Rita. Comments from the committee?
I have a question. Whenever anybody else.
Mr. Beneteau, go ahead.
If, through you, Chairman, to Rita, if they move this garage and they move it, does it fall within everything it's supposed to on the boundaries of everywhere else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, great question. That's correct. He will be 4 feet from that proposed lot line, and he will meet the setback requirement of 15 feet from the exterior side lot line.
And Kevin has looked at this building and it's movable?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. As indicated on the revised site plan, you'll see that Kevin did approve the plans.
Okay. Still, I got one more. And if we grant this change in conditions, he still has to meet all the conditions by October 15th of this year. He does not get another year's extension.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. He only has until October 15th.
Anyone else? I have a question. We approved this application on the material that was sent out to the residents, and there was nobody to oppose it. And they were satisfied with the decision that we made at that time. Now he's asking for changes to that condition without anybody being notified. And that takes in residents from the town of Amherstburg as well, because everyone knows that Walker Road splits Essex and Amherstburg. So I'm wondering if we risk having a problem with this decision if we would change it.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the decision is your decision on the severance, which includes the conditions. At the time of the meeting back in 2019, no one actually objected and no one spoke to the application at the meeting besides Mr. DiGiovanni. So the Planning Act with respects to change of conditions does state that if you feel that the change of conditions is major enough, then we will have to notify anybody who spoke on the application originally of that change, and they have the right to appeal. However, there was nobody who spoke on this application besides the applicant back in 2019.
I understand that, but moving the structure will, excuse me, will change it somewhat.
Moving the structure won't change the fact that they're asking for a severance. That, you know, that's what the application was. It was for a lot addition. They'll have to move that structure regardless to satisfy the building code and to satisfy the zoning bylaw. That condition was imposed simply to satisfy the committee that that structure would be moved.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask one more question?
Mr. Benetto.
Through you to read it. If they're moving this building, does it come closer to anybody around there that, you know, could have said, hey, wait a minute, this building wasn't going to be there before?
For you, Mr. Chair, no, it's within the bylaw regulations for an accessory structure.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, okay, they're moving it. Is there a house or somebody owns property side by each to it or whatever that saying, wait a minute, all of a sudden I got a garage 4 feet off my property line that wasn't going to be there last week.
So through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, this property is actually a corner lot.
Okay.
So there's nobody beside them.
Alrighty.
Well, I wouldn't say directly beside there isn't anybody, but there are people beside it.
Just could I speak? It's Dan DiGiovanni. I just have we're not moving the garage. We're making it smaller. We're cutting 4 feet off the back. So we're not moving it. We're cutting 4 feet off the back. So we're making it smaller.
Weren't we just talking about it being moved?
It's not, no, the back wall's being moved. So we're just, not the whole structure is being moved, just the wall that's on the property line. So that wall's being moved 4 feet in, not the whole building, just the back wall. We're making it smaller.
Okay, that clears it up a little bit.
That clears it up a lot.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Mr. Gray?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't have a little more information on what's being requested here. I'd be more than happy to give Mr. DiGiovanni an extension on his October 15th timeline so we could review this. Was there an issue about parking? Was that part of why the garage was coming down? Because this is going to be a multi-unit apartment building. Was parking somewhat of an issue on the size of the lot? I can't recall everything about it. I wish I'd had the time, and
No,
I wish I'd had
it was on the lot line.
what we were going to be talking about.
It's because it was on the lot line, Brian, that it was to be moved, and we cannot give an extension.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
What do you need, a motion here or something?
Anybody else? Well, we need a motion to either grant it or leave it as is. Mr. Pocock.
I'll motion to reduce the size of the building by 4 feet on the back wall.
Is there a seconder for that? Mr. Benetto? Questions? All in favor? It's carried.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, just for clarity, Was that a motion to change the condition that the south wall be reduced by 4 feet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
That is what he wanted.
Okay. Thank you. Any other unfinished business?
through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind the committee, we have an appeal for 1241 South Malden Road. We actually have a hearing date now. It's on Thursday, September 24th, next week at 9:30 a.m. And because of COVID, we will have to engage in this appeal electronically. So I did send out an email to all committee members. Percy, I called you because you don't have email, with a copy of that notice that came directly from the local planning appeal tribunal. In that, you'll find information about the meeting date, meeting time, and as well as the access code if you're calling in or if you plan on listening in via your computer. I can send that to the committee again. And just as an update, I will be attending the appeal hearing in the McDowell Community Center. If any of you would like to join me, then please let me know just so we can accommodate you in terms of social distancing. I know Percy, you'd like to be there, so that's one committee member. Anybody else, just shoot me an email or give me a phone call. With respects to myself, I will be a witness. The appellant will have a planner and will also have a lawyer, and the town will also have a lawyer. So we will have representation at this appeal hearing.
Thanks. When I spoke to that lawyer, it didn't really sound to me like he was going to support the committee's decision. I understand, like I know when you go to a hearing that it starts brand new from scratch. Is the feeling that the lawyer isn't supporting the town?
For you, Mr. Chair, no, he's leaving it up to the LPAT to decide. So again, he'll be referring to the materials in front of him based on your conversations with him, the minutes, my comments. So he will be presenting on the material.
Okay, thanks. Correspondent? Mr. Dan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if this appeal would be the same as the last one where committee members have to submit a written request to speak at it?
For you, Mr. Chair, in the public notice, there is information about how to submit documents if you want to be a participant. So a participant is different than a party. A party is allowed to speak. A participant is only allowed to file documents, written comments in support or an objection to the decision.
So, Mr. Boudreau, there is a time limit on that. And if you wish to be put on as a witness, you have to give notice so they can add you onto that list. Is that not right, Rita?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. However, with the last appeal, I was informed by the LPAT that you can submit something on that day. But because we're doing it electronically, I recommend that you send it over and to the LPAT. The contact information for our case coordinator is in that public notice, which I'll send after the meeting.
Thank you, Rita. I would just want to make the other members aware of it. That's why I brought it up.
Thank you. New business? No. Any notice of motion? Move for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Beneteau, seconded by Mr. Boudreau. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Sarah, she's having way too much fun.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.